Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is a review of Thundercats #1 from Dynamite Comics, wherein the Thundercats escape their devastated homeworld to find a new home on Earth 3, but they're being chased by the grotesque and malicious mutants. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Let us know how we're doing. We'd love to hear from you, and your attention greatly matters to us. So thank you for coming along. So let's get into it. This is the Thundercats #1 from Dynamite Comics, written by Declan Shelvey, art by Drew Moss, colors by Chiara Di Francia and Martina Pignadoli, and letters by Jeff Eckelberry. The main cover, or cover A, is drawn by David Nakayama. So first impressions, this was pretty much as good an adaptation as you could expect for the Thundercats. It feels pretty consistent and faithful to the original cartoon source material, but there's a little bit of a twist that happens late in the third act that sets it apart and lets you know this is either an alternate universe version of the Thundercats, or happening in a separate timeline, or something different that sets it apart. It feels very familiar, but there's a twist that makes it kind of a little bit different, and so it feels respectful, but at the same time fresh and updated, particularly with the costumes. That gives you a modern feel to the source material, not quite so 80s centric. So it looks great, it reads great, and there's enough newness in there to help to get you to read on to the second issue and possibly more. So focusing on the script a little bit, Declan Shelvey, what he does is he picks up 3 weeks roughly after the Thundercats crash land on Third Earth, or Earth 3, I think it is. And then what happens is the Thundercats are getting used to life away from their devastated homeworld, and trying to make the life for themselves a new place to live in their new homeworld. So there's a little bit of getting used to how do you set up shop, where do you live, do you hunt for game, what exactly are you doing? And then what happens is, very consistent with the original cartoon, Lion-O's stasis chamber, when they were in the spaceship, was damaged, and his body grew up, but his mind did not. So he's very much struggling with that place of angst, where he's effectively a youngster, tween, early teenager inside a fully adult grown lion man body. And so that runs him into some trouble with drama between him and particularly Panthro, who is his mentor and his trainer. But Lino, pretty much par for somebody who of that maturity level, kind of wants to take the reins. He wants to be the big leader, but he's not quite mentally and emotionally prepared to do that, which causes him to be a little bit reckless, go off on his own. And when that happens, he encounters, of course, Lord Slithe and the mutants, who have tracked the Thundercats to this new planet, and a big battle ensues where the outcome has a pretty damaging effect on Lino and his status as the king of the Thundercats. And so I won't spoil the twist in there, but something happens that is very much different than what happens in the original cartoon, which is kind of a big twist. And that lays out a mystery, in the sense that you want to see what happens and where does it go from here. And that sets this issue and the series apart from the original cartoon source material, making it a little bit different than just a straight adaptation. So what did we think about Thundercats #1? It was good. It was a solid adaptation. It feels very similar and familiar to the source material, which is the original cartoon. But there are little small differences that set it apart. The costumes are a little bit more modern and updated. They don't quite look so dated in that 1980s realm of fashion sense and style. The story feels mature, not grim or gritty or dark, but just it feels less like a kid's cartoon and more of a standard straight action adventure sci-fi comic that you'd find on shelves today. And that twist in the end lets you know that this is either a separate timeline or a separate version of the Thundercats, or a separate universe that tells you and telegraphs it in advance that this is a different spin. It's not just going to follow where the cartoon went, which is good. What didn't we like about the cartoon, about the Thundercats #1? Let's see. So the story feels very familiar up until that twist that sets it apart, but that twist doesn't come until basically really the middle to end of the third act at the very end. So if you're flipping through this and you say, okay, how is this Thundercats different than the cartoon? If you flip through real quick, you'll miss it, and you'll think this is exactly the same thing, and I'm not missing anything at all. First of all, don't make that mistake, and please pick this up because this is going to be a recommended pick. But at the same time, it would have been better that if the twist or some kind of differentiator showed up earlier in the issue, so that way it can telegraph ahead of time very early that for readers, this is like the Thundercats, but this is a different story, or this story is going in a slightly different direction. That little signal that this is going to be something different doesn't happen until much later and probably a little too late. So for casual readers who are just flipping through, they might be tempted to pass. If you're hearing this, don't. But it would have been better, I think, for Declan Shelvey and Dynamite if they kind of put that little twist in there a bit sooner to kind of give you that better signal that this is going to be something special or something that stands on its own. How's the art? The art is great. Drew Moss does a fine job of giving you characters, their body types, their structure, the way they look, the way they move, and their costumes looks very similar and familiar to people who are fans of the original cartoon, as I am. But there are little twists and tweaks to give it a modern, fresher take. So it's not quite so 1980s dated, 1970s, 80s dated. So it looks familiar and consistent, but it's not exactly the same, and it's a little bit more modern. So final comments. What do we think about Thundercats #1? Thundercats #1 is a solid pick. It's a good adaptation. It feels respectful and familiar to the source material, but at the same time, there's enough of a twist to tell you that this is going in a new direction. So it gives you anticipation and intrigue for what happens next. And the art looks great. So therefore, we're going to give Thundercats #1 an 8.5 out of 10. We hope you enjoyed this review. But before you leave, please like, share, comment, subscribe to Comical Opinions. And we're looking forward to giving you more comic reviews and comics analysis every single week. Have a great